This massive country looks full on the map, but in reality, most of it is completely empty, and the reason is more extreme than you think. Take a look at Russia. It stretches across 11 time zones. It covers over 17 million square kilometers. It's so big, it spans both Europe and Asia. Now here's the part that doesn't make sense. Despite all that space, nearly 80% of the population lives in just a small western section of the country, which means the rest, millions and millions of square kilometers, is almost empty. So what's out there? And more importantly, why does almost nobody live there? Imagine you start traveling east from Moscow. At first, everything feels normal. Cities, roads, life. But slowly, things begin to change. The cities get smaller. The distances grow longer. The roads become emptier. Until eventually, you reach a point where civilization almost disappears. Welcome to Siberia, a region so vast, it alone is larger than most countries on Earth. And yet, it's one of the least populated places on the planet. At first glance, it looks peaceful, even beautiful, but living here, that's a completely different story. Main Section 1. The Cold Reality. 2 minutes to 3:40. Let's start with the biggest reason. Cold. Not normal winter cold. Extreme cold. In parts of Siberia, temperatures regularly drop below -40 degrees Celsius. In places like Oymyakon, one of the coldest inhabited places on Earth, temperatures have reached below -60. At that level, everything changes. Cars must stay running, or they won't start again. Metal becomes fragile. Exposed skin can freeze in minutes. Even breathing the air feels dangerous. Now imagine living like this for months, because winter here doesn't last a few weeks. It can last up to 6 or even 7 months. Long, dark, freezing months where survival becomes the priority. And suddenly, the question isn't, why don't people live here? It becomes, how could they? But the cold is only the beginning. There's something even more unusual happening beneath the surface. Much of this region sits on permafrost, ground that remains frozen all year long. And that creates a hidden problem. Because when the surface layer thaws slightly in summer, the ground becomes unstable. Buildings can shift, roads crack, infrastructure slowly breaks apart. Entire towns have to be built on special supports just to stay standing. Now think about what that means. Every road, every building, every pipeline becomes harder and more expensive to maintain. And when things break, repairing them in such remote, freezing conditions becomes a massive challenge. This isn't just difficult living. It's constant resistance from the environment itself. Now imagine this. You step outside your home. There are no nearby cities, no busy roads, no quick access to anything. In many parts of Siberia, the nearest town could be hundreds of kilometers away. Some places are only reachable by plane or by roads that exist for just part of the year. During winter, frozen rivers actually become roads, and when they melt, those routes disappear completely. This kind of isolation changes everything. Getting food becomes harder. Healthcare becomes limited. Even communication can be unreliable. And over time, that isolation pushes people away. Because humans aren't built to live completely alone. We need connection. And here, connection is one of the rarest things. So instead of spreading out across the land, people cluster. They gather in places where life is easier. In the western part of Russia, you'll find major cities like Moscow and St. Petersburg. These areas have infrastructure, opportunities, warmer climates, relatively speaking. And once populations form in these regions, they grow. More jobs, more services, more reasons to stay. Meanwhile, the eastern regions remain largely untouched, not because they're forgotten, but because they're simply too difficult to develop on a large scale. Now here's the key insight. This isn't just about one country. It's about a pattern. Humans don't live everywhere they can. They live where life is sustainable, where effort matches reward, where survival doesn't require constant struggle. So when you look at the empty spaces across Russia, you're not seeing unused land. You're seeing limits, natural limits, boundaries set by climate, geography, and distance. And those limits are stronger than we often realize. Because if a country this massive can remain mostly empty, what does that say about the rest of our planet? How much of Earth is actually livable? And how much only looks habitable until you try to survive there? Maybe the world isn't as full as we think. Maybe we're just living in the few places where life is possible, and everything else was never meant for us.